Hello, hello. I have a 2001 Golf 2.0 here with a particular problem. Let's check this out. Alright, key in the ignition. Turn the wheel a little bit. Let's do it again. All lights come on. And right here is where the immobilizer light turns off. You try to start the vehicle. Do it again. The vehicle starts only a little bit and then it dies. Alright, so I'm going to replicate the same symptoms that I have without the engine control module, because I took that out. I'll tell you about that later. So, connect the battery. Door opened. Fuel pump started pumping. That function's working. The instruments are all lighting up, and we're just gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes. Alright, so the car have been sitting here for a little bit. We have VCDS connected to the OBD2. Open up this laptop. And we're not gonna do engine because we don't have the engine control module. But here's the automatic transmission. No response. ABS. It's trying to read it, but still no response. Airbags. No response. And instrument cluster. No response. Alright, now we're gonna turn off the ignition. We're gonna take this instrument cluster and we're gonna disconnect the connections. There it is. Just throw it down there. Ignition on. And then out of trance. So there you go. It's reading something. You know, there's a whole bunch of codes. Well, the engine control module is not connected. Kick down switch. accelerator position, existing codes, but now there's codes. You can actually see the modules. ABS brakes, ABS brakes are working. No faults in ABS. Airbags. There it is. Fault codes. Data bus code. Makes sense. So now, this one, see I put the mileage. It's a good amount of mileage. We're gonna put a different instrument cluster. For example, this one here, 67,000 miles. I wrote all this info before, but it's the same MK4 cluster. As soon as you put this cluster in, the little key light's gonna blink. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this same cluster in, leave it for 15 minutes, and see if the same short that's happening appears. If the same short appears, that means the problem is in the wiring that the cluster is going to. Wherever these right here, these guys go to, and I think it's the data bus connections because the cluster itself is actually working. So the data bus connections that are coming from either these two, I'm not too sure which ones, and wherever they're going to, either that's the short or the short is inside the cluster itself, which is what I think it is. I think the short is inside this cluster, even though this cluster is working perfectly fine. All right, new cluster, 67,000 miles. We're gonna leave this plugged in like so. VCDS is not connected. Obviously we got this little light blinking because it's not the correct cluster. Immobilizer is turned on. But you should still be able to access all the control modules, and I'm gonna give that time. I'm gonna go hang out for a little bit and then we'll come back and do these same tests. Alright, it's been about 15 to 20 minutes with the ignition on with the different cluster, and so we have VCDS connected again, and we're just gonna check out the transmission. It's showing up. Close controller, ABS brakes, showing up again. Close controller, instrument cluster. Even this one's showing up. With a whole bunch of codes. But anyways, so pretty much what my diagnostics is that this cluster right here, this MK4 cluster, is a crappy cluster that is causing the short, and that's why the engine is not starting, because there's no communication between any of the modules, or it's tricking the immobilizer somehow, because that's why it's starting and then it shuts off. It actually sounds more right. All right, so then you go on eBay, you type in immobilizer delete, and you find these guys which call themselves VAR parts, and you ship your ECU all the way to Massachusetts. And so I live in California. I sent it off on Monday. I got it back Saturday. So it took about a whole week to do this process. And here's their label, VAR parts. I got the ECU. Let's go put it in the car and see what happens. Okay, so I plugged it in. Let's get that power going and start the car. So obviously the key should be blinking because it's not the correct instrument cluster. See, this one has really low mileage. Oh, look at that. So there you have it. If you found this tutorial useful, please like and subscribe.